Ladies and gentlemen, what is up and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be having a look at the early data mined abilities for both Sentry and Void in Marvel Contest of Champions, which are two champions that I either speculate to be bosses of 5.4 and then later playable characters due to the fact that they have synergies, or the playable characters that arrive in January. I think from yesterday's MODOK Lab announcement, it's pretty clear that MODOK and Taskmaster are going to be arriving next month, but I think these two got snuck into the game files a little bit early, and I think they're going to be the champions kind of coming out in January 4th, and also I think January 18th for the speculated release dates for the both of them. And then after that we got the Black Panther movie and a lot of cool stuff there. So that's kind of, you know, what I'd predict in terms of the release date. And I think in comparison to MODOK and Taskmaster, the abilities for both Sentry and Void, they're a little bit more early on, and what leads us to believe that these are actually two separate characters instead of potentially the same champion is that both of them, they have synergies each, and they both have different champion bios. So it looks like they're going to be two completely different characters, and from the amount of abilities, it does seem a little bit insane if they were all just one character. So yeah, that's what we are assuming at the moment, that they're going to be playable and that they're going to be two different characters. But you know, that might be wrong, and some of the stuff might change. However, some of the early abilities look very, very cool. There's a lot more available with Sentry than there is with Void, but Sentry seems amazing. I kind of get this vibe that Sentry is a bit more of a utility-based, like Star-Lord. That's how I would describe Sentry in terms of, you know, how he looks to work. And I'll essentially explain, you know, why I've come to that very bottom-line conclusion. So essentially, Sentry has two ways of ramping up damage based on the amount of combo that he's done. And the first one is via his 4 states, which he cycles through. He cycles onto the next state for every 10 hits he gets on the combo meter. So 0 to 10, it's state 1, 10 to 20, state 2, 20 to 30, state 3, and then 40 plus is state 4. So it's unyielding fortitude, overpowering light, steadfast approach, and then absolute strength. And as well as having kind of that mechanic, and if you drop your combo tool, you go indestructible for a few seconds based on the amount of stacks of reality warp that you have, which is an additional resource that can be used to generate damage, which we'll talk about in a second. But also, that's a really, really cool ability that if you mess up and you lose your combo, if you know, have been doing fairly well in the fight, you're actually going to have this period where you're not going to take any damage, and then you can just pick yourself up and go again. So that seems pretty damn good, ladies and gentlemen, pretty damn good. So the thing is with reality warp and how that works is at the start of the fight and after every 40 hits in a combo, Sentry gains a reality warp. Reality warp stacks up to a maximum of 5, and reality warps are used as a multiplier for his abilities, so they can be used for the regen, but also when we talk about the phases, they kind of power up a lot of various abilities and stuff that he does there. So state 1, the kind of 0 to 10 combo, there's not really much going on in there, but Sentry cannot lose his combo during this 0 to 10, so that's alright, I guess. And then we have state 2, which is overpowering light, and then Sentry attack, special attack 1 is increased by a certain amount based on the amount of reality warp charges he has, becomes unblockable, and then remains until Sentry changes state. So I think once you go into the next state, you lose the powers of the previous state, but you gain some sort of, you know, I believe there's going to be, you know, quite a big incentive to push forward. And then in state 3, you have your heavy attack is increased by the amount of reality warp charges you have. In addition, you gain 100% chance to perfect block, and it remains until Sentry changes state. So that seems, I don't know, pretty alright. Like 100% chance to perfect block. There might be some interesting ways to, you know, play Sentry to utilize this 100% guaranteed chance to take 0 damage while blocking. Between, how many combos is that going to be? That's between 20, is that 20 and 30, or I think that's 30 and 40 actually. Yeah, so that's 0 to 10, 10 to 20, actually it might be 20 to 30, and then 30 plus. No, am I getting this wrong? I might be getting a little bit confused, but I'm interested to see what happens there regardless. And then state 4, Sentry's special attack 2 is increased by by 1 per reality warp and is unblockable, and remains until Sentry changes states. So I'm not too sure if he cycles back to state 1, but I'm assuming that once he's reached absolute strength that he stays there, or else, you know, maybe it cycles back again and maybe it's just in a state of constant flux. But again, one of the things that is going to be constantly ramping up your damage is the amount of reality warp stacks that you can generate, and that's for every 40 hits on the combo. And I think one really interesting thing when it comes to reality warp is that when this champion is awakened, he has an ability at the start of the fight. If health is above a certain percentage, reality warp persists with Sentry from the previous fight. So I'm interested to see, you know, exactly how effective and how powerful that is, but that might be kind of, you know, I kind of think of a mechanic like that as something like, you know, you could retain a certain amount of hits when you start a fight if you were playing a Star-Lord. So it seems like it could be pretty cool. And then we have what the special attacks do. So we have the special 1, which is Light Blast. Sentry punches his opponent before unleashing a light-based energy blast. Special 2 is Soaring Strike. Sentry leads with an uppercut and then loops around for a flying double punch and has a percentage chance for Fury, increasing your attack. And special 3 is Channel the Void. Sentry transforms into the void, creating a black hole that consumes the opponent. I think this is a little bit of a line of text that's quite confusing when it comes to potentially having a second character that is the void in the game. So yeah, I'm not too sure if, you know, Sentry and Void are going to be the same champion, but this is one of the lines that did really make me question it. But the special 3 has a chance to armor break, removing an enemy armor up and applying a armor rating reduction for a certain amount of seconds. So you got Fury on the special 2 and armor reduction on the special 3. So interested to see how powerful those are. And then we have the champion synergies with Sentry. It doesn't state which champions activate this, but Sentry, after a special 3 attack, Sentry inflicts Fear of the Void. Fear of the Void combines Agility, which is ability accuracy reduction, Fatigue, which I think is crit chance reduction, and Petrify is, I don't know what Petrify is off the top of my head, as well as increasing Sentry's attack rating by a certain amount for 40 seconds, and this is unique synergy, so that seems pretty good if it's an attack rating increase for 40 seconds. Like, this one seems like it's going to be quite powerful, and I assume that's the synergy that he's going to have with Void. And then he has Become One, so after a special 3 attack, Sentry inflicts Fear of the Void. Fear of the Void, is that, this is a slightly different one. Fear of the Void combines the effects of Agility, Weakness, and Petrify, and deals a certain amount as direct damage. So yeah, I don't know, I'm a little bit confused about, you know, how those two are going to trigger, but as, you know, I mentioned at the start of this video, I think these, this champion ability list, you know, since they're assume it's January champions, I feel like they're quite incomplete. So yeah, it looks like Sentry, you know, has potential to be a really, really awesome damage-dealing champion that kind of has very, very nice ramp-up effects, and also a bit of a safety barrier if you do mess up your combo, and I'm really, really hoping that Sentry is a science champion. That has been the prediction from JJW, so yeah, hopefully that comes through, man, comes through. But then we have Void, who kind of seems like a bit of a better defender. As mentioned, he is a different champion bio to Sentry, and the abilities, they're in a little bit of a weird order here, but essentially a sign called Intimidating Presence, which every certain amount of seconds, Void's Intimidating Presence inflicts 1 random debuff, plus an additional amount of seconds on the timer if at least 1 Intimidating Presence debuff is already active. So if, you know, as he is stacking debuffs become a lot longer lasting, and he can get them, you know, more aggressively. So the Intimidate stuff, again, this stuff is quite messy when it comes to Void. It's all over the place. Because Agility debuff, which we talked about vaguely earlier on Sentry's special 3 with the assumed Void synergy, which will reduce ability accuracy of Evade and the Dexterity Mastery by a certain %, and has a maximum of a certain amount of stacks, which we don't know yet. Petrify reduces the effectiveness of power gain and regeneration. Oh, so that's what Petrify is. So yeah, that could be really, really good. If this can go up to 100%, which I think it may be able to, or get very close with the Awakened ability, this could be pretty insane for Void. And also, opponents can purify 1 Intimidating Presence for every certain hits on their combo meter. So this actually is a bit of an interesting line of text. So it means when you're fighting Void, if you're using a champion, let's say like a Drax or a Hela or a Medusa or a War Machine or Joe Fixer that might have some sort of ability with, you know, a surplus of additional hits, these might be amazing counters for Void, you know, when you're fighting him. But I assume champions like Taskmaster and Blade, which have really, really high debuff immunity resistance when played correctly, I think they're going to be quite powerful when fighting Void as well. Like, you know, initially reading through Void, I'm just thinking like Blade all the way. Like, he seems like an amazing champion to rinse this dude. And I think one thing that I missed about Void as well is just a line of text here saying that he is fully immune to incinerate effects, which seems pretty damn interesting there. So we also have, when all intimidating presence debuffs are at max stacks, those debuffs will be removed after a certain amount of seconds. However, when awakened, they don't get removed, and it doubles down, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then finally, a fatigue debuff, which reduces critical rating. So yeah, you've got an ability accuracy reduction via the debuffs, power gain, regeneration, block potential, reduced crit rating, which isn't really too helpful, but then I think if you get this champion awakened, you can double down. And also, there is, for each unique debuff type, the opponent takes a certain amount of direct damage per second. Oh, interesting to see how this turns out. Is it going to make Void a very fun and interactive champion? Is like, I guess there have been like a lot of new mechanics to like help counter debuffs, you know, because we've had like Blade, we've had Kingpin maybe not too reliable. Taskmaster, once he gets to a certain point, is going to be immune to debuffs. So yeah, I'm interested to see, you know, how difficult potentially Void could be. And then we also have a percentage chance per debuff to evade special attacks. If Fear of the Void is active, this chance is set to a certain amount, a certain percent. So this is actually another really interesting thing about Void that could make him an amazing defender and a really, really good utility champion, is if you have like all of the debuffs, you can have like a guaranteed like Stark Enhanced or Classic Daredevil chance to evade a special attack, which might be really, really useful. Maybe, you know, Void could potentially be the counter we've been looking for the Collector. Actually, he'd still get the ability accuracy reduction, so he maybe not quite there, but I don't know, maybe some interesting potential for the future. Then we also have his special attack, so the Void terrifies the opponent by charging and releasing massive blast of concentrated dark energy. Special 2 is Abyssal Glimpse. The Void teleports close to his opponent to strike with a point blank blast from deep inside the abyss. And Special 3 is the Sentry temporarily wrests control from the Void and ignites a newborn sun around the opponent. So yeah, that seems like absolutely insane. Like, the Special 3 animations, I'm so looking forward to seeing them from both Sentry and Void. I imagine they're going to be like absolutely ridiculous. And then we have the signature ability, which is a little bit messy as a note here. So essentially, when all intimidating presence debuffs are at max stacks, instead of those being removed like it is, so this is the Wake ability we're talking about here, those debuffs are converted into a passive Fear of the Void that combines their effects and grants Void a certain amount of additional attack rating for a certain amount of additional seconds. So also, when Fear of the Void is active, intimidating presence generates debuffs a certain percentage faster. So I'm not too sure if that just means that, you know, your debuffs are more aggressively going to come up when this phase is active as well. So you just go into like some sort of insane mode where you're dealing a load of additional direct damage with all the debuffs, and you've got a huge amount of attack. So yeah, I don't know. It seems like it could be very, very promising. And then we have some of the stuff that is associated with the special attacks. So we got the special one, which inflicts an intimidating presence debuff, and also inflicts a power sting against villain champions, similar to Yellow Jacket, from what I understand. So that's interesting to see. And the strength of this special attack, Dark Sting, the strength of this special attack is increased based on how many unique debuff types are currently active on the opponent. So yeah, that's essentially the power sting there. Inflicts 0 dark stings, each lasting a certain amount of seconds. An opponent with a dark sting gains weakness or a degeneration debuff per sting when activating a special attack. So yeah, that seems interesting. Looks like he's gonna have a degeneration on the Sting as well, based on the debuffs that you have. It's all a little bit confusing when it comes to some of these early abilities. And then we have Special 2, which inflicts a certain amount of unique debuffs, plus a certain amount of damage. And the Special 3 unique debuffs provide a certain amount of fury based on the amount that you have. So yeah, it looks like, you know, between like this amount and this amount, you get like a medium bonus, and between this amount, like if you get over a certain amount of debuffs, you'll get like a really insane bonus. So it looks like Void as well as just a really ramping up champion who looks like he might have some insane damage, some really good utility. It seems like a counter for Mephisto. So yeah, I don't know. There's so much potential, but it looks like I really get the impression from Void the Void could be, I mean, Blade is already a very, very good Mephisto counter, but I think Void might be the ultimate Mephisto counter, because, you know, he's going to be immune to the Incinerate, he's going to be reducing the power, reducing the healing, so, yeah, could be absolutely insane there. And then we have the champion synergies with Void, so we have, when activating his Special 3, the Void gains a reality warp charge for a certain amount of seconds, increasing the duration of any fury buffs acted afterwards by 20 seconds. So yeah, I'm interested to see that. I assume that's probably the synergy with Sentry, and they just power each other up like a crazy amount. And then we have Void. When charging heavy attacks, Void can gain up to 3 fury buffs, each enhancing his attack rating by a certain amount for 8 seconds. And then we also have the synergy with Hulk, which gains 1 bar of power when below a certain % health, so even more Hulk synergies, man. We've seen so much love for Hulk on some of the Asgardian synergies, so it's always nice to see him getting a little bit more love here and there. And then finally we have, I think, one of the most interesting synergies I've seen in a while, and I really, really like this one, because this isn't a band-aid like, this champion sucks, let's make it viable. It's a bit of interesting utility, so Void gets Fear of the Void activates at the start of the fight for a certain amount of seconds against the Avengers, and I think that's like all of the debuffs combined. So if you're fighting an Avengers-based champion, or any champion with an Avengers tag, like you just instantly wreck them, or instantly go God mode. So that seems pretty cool. And then Avengers, you have if you're playing an Avengers character, you have a percentage chance to shrug off debuffs and become unstoppable for a certain amount of seconds, like 3 seconds, I believe it's going to be. So yeah, that seems like it could potentially be really, really interesting, and maybe like Void with an Avengers synergy is one of his own counters. But, you know, initially I'm kind of predicting that Taskmaster and Blade are going to be probably the 2 most popular champions for taking down Void. However, it's so early, it's so hard to tell, but that's just some initial predictions right there. But regardless of which, I think both of these characters, they seem really, really cool. There's been so many kind of new and interesting abilities in the 4 new characters that we've had data mined info on, like MODOK and Taskmaster coming next month. They look awesome characters. Very excited for hopefully January, when Sentry and Void also become playable characters as well. So I think there's a lot of hype, a lot of stuff to look forward to in Marvel Contest of Champions at the moment, and they seem to be doing a pretty good job in you know, kind of pushing forward champion design and making it a little bit interesting, and creating champions that can counter some of the biggest problems that we have in Marvel Contest of Champions at the moment. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think of Sentry and Void? Do you think they're going to be the same character? Do you think they're different characters? Which one do you think is going to be more powerful? Like, a bit of me, I kind of think that Void is going to be a little bit better than Sentry, but I'm not too sure. It's super hard to tell, but if Sentry has some really good kind of base stats, and if his reality warp charges really buff up the character, like, he could potentially be pretty damn crazy. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think in the comments below. Apart from that, thank you very much for watching, take care, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic day.